funny.
Please.
Thank you.
Bjarke, we're so pleased to have you here. There are so many great projects you're working on that we want to ask you about. You're dividing up your time now between New York and Copenhagen. You just finished your big new studio in Copenhagen, is that right?
Yeah. Actually, we built our own building at the tip of a pier. Inside a small little park we designed, sort of reclaiming the industrial port for the future neighborhoods of the city. And
for those of our audience who are New Yorkers, maybe let's tick off some of the things that you're most proud of your projects in New York. You've done so many.
But like here in the city, we started doing a Via 57. It's nicknamed the Court Scraper because it's somehow combining the density and verticality of a skyscraper with the communal space of a courtyard building. So it looks kind of a warped pyramid on the West Side Highway. If you land in Teterboro, you'll see it sort of flying in.
Right, and then the Spiral?
We just finished the Spiral, which is the home of Pfizer, HSBC, and just TPG. And it's essentially a classic Manhattan skyscraper, but because we try to make the floor plates as large as possible, because tenants really want the largest possible floor plates, we rub up against the setback requirements. So instead of making a classic ziggurat with these kind of incremental steps, we distributed the setbacks in a spiral of 66 terraces that cascade up around the building. So each floor has access to their own outdoor garden with trees and plants. But they also have the potential for a double height space. So like one of the tenants have 14 floors, and each floor is connected to the floor above and the floor below. So you can actually walk inside the building throughout the whole office space. So instead of like waiting endlessly at the elevator, you can actually see your colleagues several floors above and go to them.
And wave to them. That's great.
And I might add that actually HSBC have found that without changing their company policy, they've gone from less than 40% attendance to 80% attendance after moving into the new space.
Interesting.
Because the joy and productivity of being in a better space and seeing each other seems to be working more than mandate.
Than badgering people to just come into the office. So I want to talk about some of your recent kind of more futuristic projects. But before that, maybe we can go back just to kind of your origins. What drew you to architecture in the beginning? Because you started very young as an architect.
No, I wanted to be a cartoonist, and in the absence of a cartoon academy in Denmark, the Royal Danish Art Academy School of Architecture was the closest match, and because architecture is free education, university is free in Denmark. You can be a little bit more frivolous with your choices. So I thought, spent a few years getting good at drawing buildings and landscapes. So essentially drawing the background for the stories I wanted to draw and the characters. And then I became fascinated with the background and stayed course on the plan B.
Marvelous. You have a couple of sort of ideas that are associated with your work that are interesting, and I hope you can maybe expand on a little bit for us. One is this idea of hedonistic sustainability, and the other is kind of practical utopianism. What do those ideas mean?
No, it's the first one, like the first project we ever did is actually is the Copenhagen harbor bath, and it's because like 2 decades ago, because of investments in surface sewers and other things, like suddenly the port of Copenhagen became so clean that you could swim in it. And our first project was to design the Copenhagen harbor bath that essentially extends the life of the city into the water around it. And on opening day, you suddenly saw the Copenhageners jumping in the port in the middle of the city instead of taking their car for hours to get to the Hamptons or the equivalent of the Hamptons in Copenhagen. And I felt this was part of a bigger idea, the idea that the clean port is not only nice for the fish, it's amazing for the citizens that live in that city, that the sustainable city or the sustainability building is not only better for the environment, it's also more enjoyable for the people that inhabit it. And we've been pursuing this idea of hedonistic sustainability in various ways. But in 2019, we opened Copenhagen,
right.
which is the cleanest waste-to-energy power plant in the world in Copenhagen.
Right.
It's so clean that the steam that comes out of the chimney is actually cleaner than the air of Copenhagen. So it's a true fact. And so the roof, we designed it, basically the machinery inside steps down. So we designed it with a sloping roof. So the facade is actually the tallest man-made climbing wall in the world. You need to be a pretty skilled climber to make it to the top. And the roof is an alpine park where you can hike and ski, downhill all year skiing. I mean, Denmark, depressingly, never gets any medals at the Winter Olympics. But we hope eventually this could change now that the Copenhageners can...
This is an extraordinary building. I mean, just show of hands, has anybody seen videos of this Copenhagen? It's just amazing. It's a ski resort on top of a recycling plant.
Actually, one of the best free solo climbers in the world recently made it to the top without harness. I'm happy, like a very stressful video to watch.
Okay, so, and then practical utopianism, what's that?
Yeah, so that's essentially, I actually think that fundamentally a lot, and I think this transcends architecture, a lot of the key breakthroughs in technology or in culture or in politics for that matter could be defined as oxymorons when seemingly mutually exclusive or contradictory elements or ideas become unified. And you can say, most people would say hedonistic sustainability is an oxymoron. You should either choose enjoyment or the environment, but you can actually have both. And sometimes the better the environment, the more the enjoyment of living there, right? Similarly, pragmatic utopia is essentially this idea that if utopia is this concept of a place so perfect that it can only exist in fiction, and if pragmatism is the idea of dealing with the world as it is, then every project, every building design, every public space, every neighborhood, every master plan has the possibility to be a pragmatic utopia. Actually, a great way to explain, I think, the significance of architecture is the Danish word for design is formgivning, which literally means form giving. Because when you're designing something, you're giving form to that which has not yet been given form. In other words, you're giving form to the future. Because when you're designing a space or building, you are giving form to the world, or a part of the world, that you would like to find yourself living in the future. So in that sense, and I think that is essentially the idea of pragmatic utopia, that each project becomes a small fragment of the future you would like to see happening.
So I want to talk about some of your recent projects, which are very much that, giving form to the future. And not only designing this world, but designing other worlds in some cases. There is one project that you are working on that is literally a moonshot. I wonder if we could see some images of that. Can we put up some slides here? Or do you have a clicker? Oh,
yeah, no, exactly.
Okay. All right, good.
So, well, at least we see them.
Do we have them? You can see them. Okay,
no, excellent,
great.
excellent. Yeah, so we're working with, it's called Project Olympus. It's part of the Artemis program of NASA. Let me see here. And it's essentially working with a 3D printing company, Icon, out of Austin, to develop the technology to build the first building on the moon. And it's using solar-powered lasers to essentially melt moon dust into a sort of lunar obsidian. So when you melt it in a kiln, it becomes a kind of basalt. And when you sinter it with lasers, it becomes what in Game of Thrones they would call dragon glass. So like a black glass-like, very strong stone.
Yeah.
And in 2028, we're scheduled to land, or NASA is scheduled to land the first laser printer that essentially has a mission success is to create the equivalent of a sidewalk tile. And if that sidewalk tile passes the structural tests, then it would release the funding for making the first permanent human habitat on the south pole of the moon. Essentially melting moon dust into the building material of the future.
So if it clears that threshold, when would kind of construction and design work on that begin?
No, but that should be 32.
Not that far away.
No, exactly. We're designing the new Philharmonic in Prague.
Yeah.
It's scheduled to open in 32. And we're designing the new airport in Zurich. It's going to be the largest building made out of timber, actually.
One of timber, yeah.
But it's scheduled to open fully in 2035. So we have projects on the moon with a schedule tighter than some of our terrestrial work.
My gosh. So futuristic, but not that far in the future. Amazing. Well, you mentioned that the 3D technology designed for this very kind of utopian project also has practical uses right here, on planet Earth. Can you say a word about that?
No, exactly. It was like that. Because the current technology that ICON is using, and right now we're building the first 3D printed hotel in Marfa, Texas, El Cosmico. And we just finished the first 3D printed neighborhood, Wolf Ranch in Austin for Lennar. But it's a gantry crane, so it has a maximum print height of 11 feet and a maximum width of 30 feet. That's the span of the gantry crane.
Yeah.
And also you need to send guys out to put down rails.
Tracks
And you need to level the site.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of handcraft. So of course here we wanted to land and deploy immediately. So we got the idea of a single pivot and a kind of multi-axis arm. So to be able to deliver that technology, ICON has developed the Phoenix, the next generation, and there's a functioning prototype. And it's suddenly, instead of 11 feet, it can print 27 feet of height, so multi-stories. It has a much greater reach, and you don't need to level the site, so you can build on much more exciting topographies.
Just kind of put that albedo down.
So all of this means that you can deliver much faster, spending way less hours. So in a way, you increase the design freedom and the quality, but you lower the cost and increase the speed.
Wow.
So you end up having these positive Earth-bounded side effects of trying to solve a very, very hard piece of designing engineering on the moon. So just like the moon race, the space race, and DARPA, you're seeing that this urge to solve very difficult problems ends up having fantastic spin-offs on sort of terrestrial application.
Yeah. Let's talk about a different kind of utopia. The work that you're doing in Bhutan is fascinating. Maybe you could show us some of those images.
Yeah, let me see.
Has anyone been to Bhutan? Pretty good. It's one of the most beautiful countries in the world. Say a little bit about this.
Yes, so these are different images of a project we're trying to do in Bhutan. It's not a very responsive clicker, but essentially they are different sort of situations from a city we are trying to create in Bhutan called Gelefu, the Mindfulness City, and Bhutan is this incredible kingdom in the Himalayas. It borders two neighbors, China and India, so they have like 3 billion neighbors in two countries. And they managed to remain sovereign. They're also the most sustainable country in the world. They sequester almost twice as much carbon as they emit. They're powered almost exclusively with hydroelectricity. They measure their success as a nation in gross national happiness.
Famous for that, yeah.
Rather than typical economic parameters. But a year and a half ago, I met the king after the coronation of King Charles. He came to Copenhagen, and I found myself sitting next to him at a dinner. And he said he actually came to Copenhagen to meet me because he was thinking about creating a city on the border of India. Because the young generation of Bhutanese, they're well educated, they speak perfect English. They go to Australia and Canada in large numbers to pursue prosperity and the excitement of the modern world. So he wanted to create a special administrative zone that could attract foreign investment and retain local talent without losing the values that make Bhutan so endearing to all of us. And what we've tried to do is we've designed a city shaped by the 34 rivers that flow from the Himalayas down to India through the sort of tropical plains at the base of the Himalayas. This is one of the bridges that crosses the river. You saw one that was a market, one that was a hospital, one that was a university. And in this environment, we're trying to imagine a city that doesn't displace nature, but actually preserves it, that doesn't displace agriculture, but integrates it into the city. A city that is built with the river rocks and the bamboo and the timber you find in abundance on the site. So essentially try to merge an environment that can attract global investment and retain local talent and attract international talent. But then also, like, the entire city will be powered by hydroelectricity.
Yeah.
The building you see here is almost like a symbol of the project that, imagine it's like an Indian step well.
Yeah, sure.
So the rivers flow from Bhutan into India. So the patterns you see when you look closer, it's actually like a series of steps. So anyone who's been standing on the top of the Hoover Dam has felt the excitement of potentially rappelling down. But here you can actually stroll down. And one of the most famous sites in Bhutan is the tiger's nest, a beautiful temple nested on the side of a rock. This would be the 21st century equivalent of the tiger's nest, that you can descend down to a temple nested on the side of a dam. It's essentially a piece of architecture, a piece of engineering that converts the power of nature into electrical power. It's a piece of engineering that becomes a piece of art. It's a piece of energy infrastructure that becomes a piece of spiritual infrastructure.
That's marvelous.
So we hope that maybe this could be for Bhutan what the Eiffel Tower is to France or the Sydney Opera is to Australia.
It's iconic, it really does. You've mentioned 3D printers. It's something that's really revolutionizing architecture. We've just got a few seconds here. Tell us quickly about how you're using AI.
I mean, I think so far, AI is incredibly good at visuals. So in that sense, and I think it's because there is an abundance of image data out there. It's also very good at text because there's an abundance of text data. I think architecture, and I'd like to say that to take a picture of a building says as much about the building as a picture of a dish says about the taste of the food. So in that sense, we need to find ways to feed data. And I think once we have biped robots and other kinds of domestic assistance robots, of course, we already have robots in the form of cars moving around the streets, gathering a lot about urbanism and traffic. But I think the second we start being able to harvest much higher bandwidth data from physical environments, then we will really have the power to threaten my livelihood in a serious way. And actually, with ICON, we have started a project called Vitruvius, where we are attempting to use the data that we already have to see if we can teach the next generation of artificial architects. And I mean, wow. if you can't beat them, then at least we're going to try to join them.
Well, your work is absolutely fantastic and very exciting that you could be here with us. I suspect you will have plenty of opportunities to use your human skills for years to come. Bjarke Ingels, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
Great.